Hi, my name's Dan, and in this video I'm going to show you how to manipulate objects inside your Unreal worlds. So we've just started off here with the standard third-person templates, and we've got the starter content in, and this is just a fresh start project. So we're just going to chuck an object in. My favourite object is the starter content, and it's in props, and it's this couch object here, so I'm going to use that as an example. So the first thing to show you is the three widgets and the three modes that you can move things around with. So there are this object that you can see down here, and when I mouse over it, the blue, red, and green arrows turn yellow, and that shows you which one I'm about to move. And this is the what's called the translation tool. Basically, it means moving it about in space. So if I highlight the blue arrow, which is the up and down arrow, and then I click and hold my left mouse button, and then I move the mouse, it will move in that direction, up and down. Similarly, side to side for the green and forwards and backwards for the red. And these are equivalent. Red is X direction, green is Y direction, and blue is the Z direction. Okay. Now, there's these little angle things here as well. If you get a reasonable view on that, goes slightly sideways. And if you hold on one of these right angles here, it'll highlight two of the arrows, and that means you can move your mouse around. So click and hold, move your mouse around in 2 dimensions at once. So that gives you like a plane movement. And there's one between each pair of these arrows. So that allows us to do the X and Y. And then the final one is X and Z placements. Okay. So that's one of the three. The way to switch between the widgets, there are 3 different widgets, is to either use these buttons across the top here, so we can switch from translate to rotate and to scale. And you can see that it's on the tooltip, it's giving you some letters here, which are the keyboard shortcuts. So I tend to use the keyboard shortcuts. So it's W for translate, E for rotate. I'm going to just click E now to go to rotate. So once again, we've got blue, red, and green, but the difference is that these are rotation around the axes, whatever the colour is. So the blue was the Z, and so that actually to rotate around the Z axis, which is the axis that points upwards here, we use the blue bar, and we can click on that and hold and drag. And this is doing it in increments of 10 degrees. We've got a snap to rotation up here, so I can disable that snap, rotate more smoothly. Snapping can be really useful if you want things precisely positioned. And you can change the amount of degrees that you're going to snap to. Up here, put snap back and click that. However, because I've also already moved that a little bit without the snap on, getting that aligned is going to be quite difficult at this point in time. It can be done. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And the third one is scale, so I'm going to press R to get scale. And again, this brings up, it looks slightly differently to the translator one, but because it's got these blocks rather than arrows. And this allows you to drag. So again, you click and hold and drag to scale your object. And you can scale it in 1 dimension. You can scale it using these bars between in 2 dimensions. Or if you click on the base one there in the middle, you can scale in all 3 dimensions. Yes, I didn't mention, if we go back to the translate tool, that little blob in the middle theoretically allows you to move it in all 3 dimensions. Actually, though, what it does is it moves it in the 2 dimensions of how your screen is, because of course you've only got 2-dimensional movement on your mouse. Okay, so that's the translate, the rotate, and the scale. The other way of altering those values and changing where something is, or how it's scaled, how it's rotated, is down here in the details pane on the right-hand side. So we have information about its world location, rotation, and scale. So what happened when we did the rotation and we had it not snapping to the grid, and now it's slightly out of true, is that when we bring up this widget, it's doing it in terms of relative to the current position or the current rotation of the object uh, for the rotation certainly. But this is relative to the world axis. So if we want to set this back to 0, we just click on the Z and type in the number 0 and press enter, and it's gone back to true. The other thing we can do with these values down here is to click and hold, and it brings up this double-headed arrow, and then we can actually drag the mouse button to get various values in there. Okay, I'm just going to set that back to 0. The scale slightly out, so I can set that back to 1. And if we want to position it in a particular place, we can set some numbers here. This is. I wonder where that's disappeared to. So let's just stick it outside the world over there. Let's move it back inside. Right, which brings me to another trick, actually, which is useful. So if you click and hold on the arrow, but then I hold on the shift key, the left shift key, as I move the mouse pointer, the camera moves with the object that I've got selected, which can be really useful for when you're moving objects a reasonable distance around within your level. Okay, so when you're fine-tuning your position of something, you might find that you're often wanting objects to be on top of some other objects. So I'm going to just move this cat so it's sitting on top of this block. And if you want it sitting exactly on top, one way of doing that is to get in close, to look really closely, and to pull this down until you're happy with where it is. However, you can see, partly because of the snap to grid here, it's either above or it's slightly embedded. I can turn off that snap to grid up here and get it more precise. If you want that precisely sitting on, which we might want to do, then there is a little trick that you can use, which is to use the End key on your keyboard. I'm just looking for mine. And I've hit End key, and what it does is it drops the object you've got selected down until it touches the next object underneath it. And that's really useful for placing stuff on top of things. Okay, so as well as moving stuff around, I want to show you some kind of standard editing stuff, which is how to duplicate things. So if you have an object selected, you can do Control-C. This is a fairly normal Windows thing to copy that object, and then you can do Control-V to get a second object. Now, those two objects are sitting on top of each other, but if you look in the world outliner here on the right-hand side, we have two instances. We've got a couch, we've got a couch too. And select the second couch, and I can drag it across. And you can see that there are two of them. Another way of duplicating something is to use the Alt key, left Alt key, and you hold it down as you drag out and move something, will give you a copy of it as you're moving it. So that's an instant duplication. There we go. So now we've got 3 of these in here. Okay. You can, when you're selecting, you can do Shift Select. That's not what I want. Control Select. What is it? Alt Select. I don't know these off the top of my brain. Let's do them in the outliner here. I want to select more than one thing at once. So Shift Select will Shift Select and range, and Control Select will just select an additional one. So you can select and deselect. So I've now got 2 of those couches selected. And you can see which 2 because there's a slight yellow outline to the 2, but it's fixed on the widget of one of them. If I want to move them together, having selected them both, then I can do that. I use that widget. I can move 2 things at once. So another thing you can do when you've got multiple objects selected is if you right-click here on the outliner, you can go to Group and you can create a group of objects. And that gives us a bounding box over the group. They're grouped together. We can move them and manipulate them as a group. Oh, I'm rotating them together. So this is quite useful if you've got sets of objects that you want to link together. Another way of doing that is to, let's just click on these separately. So they're still grouped. When I click on one, so I'm going to look for ungroup, groups, ungroup. Okay. One final thing that you can do to get objects moving together is, say I wanted, just looking for a table. I haven't found a table here, but let's have a rock. So we've got a rock and we've got these three couches. So I'm just going to drop that one down using end key and then rotate it a bit. And this is going to be a couch that's kind of facing the rock. And when we move the rock, we want to always have this this couch move with it. So what I'm going to do is, which couch is it? Just check by clicking the different ones there. In the world outliner here, I'm going to drag that rock, sorry, that couch onto the rock, and it's going to attach it to the rock. And so that's called childing, making it a child of the rock. And then if I select the rock and it's got movement tools, move it, that couch is always linked to it. However, if I select the couch separately and move it, it will move on its own. So if you manipulate the parent, it moves all the children with it. If you manipulate the child on its own, it just moves the child. You can see here in the World Outliner as well, you can put things into folders. That doesn't have the same effect. That's just in terms of organisation, so that you can pull the folders down to make it easier to navigate through that. So that's a whole lot of ways that you can deal with objects in your world. Sometimes if you want many objects, the thing to do is to select one, duplicate it, and then select both, duplicate both at once, select all four, duplicate, and then you get large numbers of things. But yeah, I've run out of things to tell you on this, so that's it from me for now.